Don't forget to be at the banquet tonight. Stan's voice echoed as my wife rushed out the door. It really means a lot to my career. Don't worry, I promised I'll be there, I assured her. After finishing my breakfast, I placed the dishes in the sink and set my cell phone on the table. Then I went back upstairs to change into comfortable golf clothes. Tossing my golf clubs and shoes into the car, I drove off. My plan was to meet a couple of friends at a golf course in Kutztown, about 100 miles away. We had a tea time at 11:30 a.m. It was a beautiful fall day, and there are some things in life you just can't buy. We wrapped up our game around 3:30 p.m. and headed into the clubhouse to grab a bite. It had been years since I last saw Jack and Steve, two of my college buddies, and we relished catching up. After filling our stomachs, we decided to squeeze in a few more holes as we were having such a blast. Darkness began to set in just as we finished our last hole. That was awesome, Jack grinned as we wrapped up. Do you have to leave right now, or can you have another drink with us, Stan? Have I ever turned down a drink, especially from such obliging friends? I chuckled. Let's head to the watering hole. We savoured a couple of beers and swapped old war stories from our glory days. It dawned on me that I should make more time to see Jack and Steve. As we neared home, my mood started to sour. I knew Brandy would be furious when I walked through the door. I mentally prepared myself to handle her anger and figure out the best way to ease her frustration. Where the hell have you been? Brandy's voice sliced through the air as I entered the living room. I told you that this banquet was crucial to me and for you to be there by 6. Sorry, darling, I began. The boss sent me to Doylestown and the traffic was unbearable. I've only just returned. I spoke to Tom, Brandy snapped. He was home at 6:30. He said you took time off work and didn't even go to work. And to top it off, you left your cell phone on the kitchen table so I couldn't contact you. Exhaustion settled in. I'm exhausted, honey, I said with a weak smile. What's settled? Brandy demanded, her frustration evident. At this point, we've established that you're lying to me. What about telling the truth? Feeling mischievous, I decided to play along. I was abducted along with my car by pirates. They whisked me away to an old warehouse to hold me for ransom, but then aliens swooped in and dragged me onto their ship. They probed my teeth, eyes, and genitals. When they left, I managed to free myself from the ropes they tied me with. Then I had to figure out how to navigate their ship. I accidentally flew into Scranton before hitchhiking back with a trucker to get my car. But don't worry, apart from feeling a bit tired, I'm fine. Brandy stared at me incredulously, unable to form a coherent response for a few moments. Stan, what are you talking about? Stop making things up and tell me why you missed the banquet. You know it was important to me. I got a significant promotion. And you were supposed to be there with me. It was extremely embarrassing that you weren't there. Brandy wheezed through gritted teeth. I was playing golf with Jack and Steve, a couple of my old college buddies, I admitted. They beat me at first, but I beat them by 30 feet on the 7th hole. I've been outplaying them ever since. This new putter is amazing. It's like a work of art. I swear I've hit a few shots at 300 yards. Golf? Brandy repeated incredulously. You knew this dinner was very important to me and you played golf. You planned it days in advance, didn't you? So why did you tell me you were going to be at my event if you weren't going to be there? I didn't want to hurt you, so I lied a little. I was hoping you wouldn't find out, I confessed. I suggested you wouldn't find out. I didn't mean to offend you. Are you out of your mind, Stan? Brandy asked. How could I not notice that damn empty chair, you idiot? How did you not mean to offend me by not attending such an important event for me? In retrospect, I realize you had a right to be upset, I admitted. But at the time, it seemed exciting and somehow different. It just happened. I never meant to hurt you. It's just golf, nothing personal. Are you drunk or something? Did you and your old buddy smoke a joint? Brandy asked. You sound like you're out of your mind. I'm too tired to discuss your selfish, nasty behavior tonight. You can sleep in one of the old nursery rooms. I don't want you to touch me or even talk to me for a while. No problem, honey. I'll be quiet as a mouse, I promised. Brandy stared at me like I was some kind of insect she'd never seen before. I smiled and headed for Brian's room. Brandy and I had been married for 24 years. Both of our children were in college and we were adjusting to the empty nest. I climbed into Brian's bed and fell fast, asleep, repeating my best beats in my sleep. The next morning, I was dressed for work, reading the paper and eating cereal when Brandy walked into the kitchen. "Don't think I'm done with you, Stan," she warned. "I don't know how or if you'll ever be able to make up to me for yesterday. I think you need to think about that yourself. I'll be working late tonight, so start your penance by cooking yourself dinner." "No problem, sweetie. I can take care of myself," I replied. "Have a good time. I'm going to work." "What do you mean, have a good time?" Brandy demanded. "Just have a good day. Be happy. Don't worry about me. Don't take any wooden nickels, whatever. It's just a saying," I explained. She looked at me like I had two heads, then turned and walked off to work. I picked up the phone and dialed my work number. I told them I wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be coming in today. I spent the morning shopping. Finally, I saw something I wanted at the store and ordered the biggest flat-screen TV on the planet. I had it delivered the same day and everything was set up. The new TV I bought worked perfectly in time for the evening news. It was so good that I couldn't help but try to look into the anchorwoman's cleavage. The TV took up the whole wall in the living room, even blocking the closet door. But it was worth it. I called a few guys from work and invited them over to watch the first game of the World Series. Then I ordered some pizza and ribs from a place down the road. When Brandy walked into the room, we were already watching the game. She looked really surprised, almost speechless. Harry, our accounting guy, saw her and jumped up to congratulate her on the promotion. "That TV is really cool. Old Stan's a lucky guy to have a wife like you," he said. Thank you very much," Brandy hesitated. "I'm really tired, so I'm going to leave you guys to watch the game and go to bed." I wondered how angry she would be in the morning. The next day, I was dressed for work and reading the morning paper when Brandy walked into the kitchen. "You're going to get that darn monster out of here and back to the store before I get home from work tonight. Can you hear me, Stan?" she shouted. "I can hear you, honey. No need to raise your voice," I grinned. "I'm not deaf." The door slammed so hard I thought the windows might break. She was hard to understand sometimes. I was watching Cheers when Brandy walked into the living room. "Didn't I tell you to return that thing?" she began. "You said you heard me and that I didn't need to raise my voice. Now I come home, and the thing is still here. What part didn't you understand, you idiot?" "I've never understood why Norm is on this show," I replied. "He's not very funny." Foam and saliva flew out of Brandy's mouth as she tried to formulate a coherent sentence. Her face turned crimson. "Stan, listen to me. I wanted you to return the TV, but you didn't." "I didn't buy this thing to return it, honey. I like it, and I'm going to keep it," I smiled. "I understood the words you spoke this morning. The problem you're facing right now is that I didn't follow your orders, not that I didn't understand your words." It never occurred to Brandy that I would refuse to follow her direct order. This was new territory, and she was caught completely off guard. "What's happened to you lately, Stan? You missed an important event by making excuses. And then you order a huge and I'm sure very expensive television without discussing it with me. Are you feeling okay?" she asked a little anxiously. "I'm feeling fine, darling. Thank you for asking," I replied. I knew that if I had asked about the TV, you would have said it was a bad idea. To save myself the heartache and not start an argument, I just ordered it. It's a lot easier, and it doesn't hurt anyone, I added. "Nobody, Stan. It hurts like hell," Brandy growled. "This is really upsetting me. This thing is too big for the room. I can't even get a vacuum cleaner. You spent a lot of money on something that really doesn't fit our house and didn't consult me. How could you think it wouldn't hurt anyone when you say that? I know what you mean. I can't do something just because it will make me happy and not think about how it will affect you, can I? I realised. That's exactly right, Stan. You've never done anything like this before. Why do you need to be taught all over again? Brandy asked. You're acting like a selfish child. I think you're right. I'll return the TV on Monday, okay? I replied. I'd rather you did it tomorrow, Stan. I have to go to work tomorrow afternoon for a few hours. Working on Saturday is frustrating, but that's why I got the promotion, Brandy reasoned. Please get rid of it when I get back tomorrow night. I nodded in agreement and went back to looking around at Shelley Long. I'd always had fantasies starring her. On Saturday afternoon, I called Bry's parents and invited them to have lunch with me. When we arrived at the cafe, I introduced everyone to Cindy Walsh, who was waiting there for me. Cindy looked tired and exhausted, and I wondered if she would be able to get by normally. Bry's parents paid no attention to anything but the free lunch I treated them to. At 3 o'clock, we followed Cindy to her house and parked behind her in the driveway. Cindy offered us seats in her tastefully decorated living room. We sat there with Bry's parents. Then, Cindy walked over to the security system remote and pressed a few buttons. The noise was deafening. Sirens howled, and a loud voice warned all intruders to leave the building immediately. It was quite intimidating. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Cindy's husband, Charles, ran into the room with a bat. He was completely naked and in a state of semi-excitement. Not recognizing Bry's parents or me because he didn't know either, he swung the bat at us threateningly. Cindy remained out of his sight. "Get the hell out of here before I beat your brains out," he shouted, pulling the bat back. Then he was stopped by a scream. "Mom! Dad! Stan! What are you doing here?" Bry's parents looked away from the naked baseball player and saw Brandy standing in the doorway, pressing a sheet against his obviously naked body. "I invited them here to have some fun, Mrs. Burns," Cindy replied as she entered the room. "Charles was never good at hiding his affairs. I knew he brought a woman into our house when I told him I had to go to Philadelphia for the weekend. I even guessed it would be you, Mrs. Burns, after seeing how attentive he was to you last night at the banquet." I stood up and nodded to Bry's parents. Then I walked over to Cindy. I shook her hand and then shifted my gaze from Bry's new boss Charles to Brandy herself. "Notre Dame is playing tonight, and I don't want to miss it on my big screen. When you're done, you're taking your parents home, right, Brandy?" I asked. "I'm sure they won't mind waiting a little. I'll get some stuff out of the house during the commercials, but it won't be the TV." The game ended and I carried all of Bry's clothes down the hall and into the living room. Then she meekly walked through the door, looked at all her personal belongings and said, "Stan, please don't do this. It was just an affair, nothing more. I never meant for you to get hurt. You weren't supposed to find out about anything. You're supposed to trust me. We've had too many years together to throw it all away like that," she pleaded. "Not to find out. How could I not notice that damn empty—"